I had a dream back in 2017, I believe. The dream starts, and I'm standing in the living room of a house. I believe that the house is like a Hispanic style house. And the dream starts that I'm in the living room of this house, and I'm facing the kitchen doorway. To my right and behind me, I believe is a Hispanic family, maybe um, a couple of adults and a couple of kids. As I'm standing there, I believe it's a child, comes up to me and tells me Jesus Christ has returned. And the child said, they say that he walks through walls. At that very moment, a female walked through the walls of that house into the living room. She literally walked through a wall into the living room. And it was my understanding that this lady was the Jesus Christ they were talking about. The child also tells me that she resurrected the Virgin Mary and brought her. When the lady walked through the walls of the house into the living room, she had what looked like a female human cadaver or corpse hanging onto her arm. She was wearing a black dress and had a black veil. Her skin itself was completely black and dried out like a corpse. The corpse didn't seem to have any life to it. It was a completely black corpse, but it was wearing a black dress and it had a black veil over its face. The corpse didn't move at all. It just hung on this lady's arm, this lady that walked through the walls. It just hung on her arm. Even the lady that walked through the wall appeared somewhat decayed and rotted. She didn't look as bad as the corpse that was on her arm, but she also appeared to be rotted and decayed too, like she was a corpse as well. And again, the lady was supposedly Jesus Christ, and she was smiling, and when she appeared in the room, she was smiling, and she had this peaceful and kind, innocent look on her face. And she actually seemed like she was floating too, the whole time, like she was floating. I was disturbed and confused by what I saw, and there was an odd feeling, and as this lady that walked through the walls, as she moved around the room, again, she kind of looked like a cadaver, or kind of looked like a corpse too, like the other lady that's hanging onto her arm. However, as she moved around the room, her appearance began to change. She started looking more human and less like a corpse. However, the corpse that was on her arm continued to look exactly the same, no change, completely black and rotted, wearing a black dress and a black veil. The people were talking amongst themselves and saying things, and they marveled at this lady. She walked through many more walls effortlessly and impressively. She was just walking through walls. And as I witnessed this, I felt like I needed to explain this to the people in the room. I began to explain to them that this cannot be Jesus Christ, because when Jesus Christ returns, he will come as judge and destroyer of sin, not as a savior. I begin to tell the people in the room this. Others in the room that were listening to me begin to agree with me. And although it's obvious that this person is a woman and Jesus Christ is a man, obviously, that subject never comes up in the dream. But after I say what I say, I tell them that this can't be Jesus Christ, because he's coming as a destroyer of sin, not as a savior, or not as as anything else, but he's going to come as a destroyer of sin. As I begin to say that and tell them that, they begin to doubt that this person, this lady, is Jesus Christ. However, despite all that, this lady continues to float around and just move through walls, carrying that cadaver with her. At one point, I was standing at another part of the living room with my back to a wall. And as she was moving through walls, she came through the wall that was behind me. And when she did, she touched my shoulder with her right hand. She touched my right shoulder with her right hand. And when she did that, I looked at her hand and I felt her hand, and her hand looked like a dried up corpse also. It looked like the hand of a corpse just touched me. But it was the lady that was floating around. And remember I said that as she moved around the room, she started to look more human. But at that moment, when she came up from behind me and touched my shoulder, I could see that her hand was completely black, like a sucked up, rotted corpse's arm when she touched my shoulder. And I could even feel it on my shoulder, and it felt like a dried up, stiff, rigid hand. And it looked like basically the hand of a rotted corpse. But when I looked at her appearance didn't look that way. She looked like a normal lady, still carrying that dried up corpse on her own arm, as she continued to move around the room. And the dream ends right there. I had this dream back in 2017. And only recently I just felt this compulsion that I wanted to put it out there. We do know that in the last days there are going to be false prophets and false teachers and deceivers that are going to deceive people into believing things that are not so. And Jesus even warned that there will be false prophets that will come and say Jesus is here or that Jesus is there, and Christ tells us to not listen to them. So be mindful, be careful in these last days, because there are false prophets out there that will cause you to believe very, 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 very wrong things.